the next President of the United States of America, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Youngstown, thank you. Let me begin by thanking Al Nixon, Bob Sutton, Jen Cancio, Alex Adams, and how do you follow Senator Nina Turner? That's a hard thing to do. And I want to thank Senator Turner not only for her support and active participation in this campaign, but for the work that she has done for social justice, for racial justice, for economic justice, year after year here in Ohio. Brothers and sisters, we began this campaign 10 months ago, and when we began it, we were 3% in the polls. We were 60, 70 points down. A lot has happened in the last 10 months. In the last 10 months, we have won 9 states. 8 of them with double-digit victories. And nobody expected us to have won Michigan last week. Guess what? We won. And a few weeks ago, people were saying, Bernie Sanders winning Ohio. No way. Well, guess what? We have a good vote tomorrow. People come out. We're going to win here in Ohio. What this campaign is about is not just about electing a president. It is about transforming our country. And in order to transform our country, I will tell you something that no other candidate for president will tell you. And that is no president, not Bernie Sanders, not anybody else, can do it alone. For us to take on, and I got to tell you, what this campaign is also about is doing something very radical. It's telling the American people the truth. That's a pretty radical act. And what is the truth? What is the truth? The truth is that given the enormous power of Wall Street, and they have endless supplies of money, corporate America, who would shut down a plant in Ohio and move to China if they can make an additional $5, corporate media that talks about everything except what's most important to the working people of this country, wealthy campaign contributors. Brothers and sisters, they have enormous power. No president can do it alone, and that is why we need a political revolution. We need millions of people to stand up. So this is not about me, it is about us. It is about the people of this country saying, enough is enough. Our government belongs to all of us, not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors. Now, let me just talk about some truths. They're unpleasant truths, but it is important to discuss the reality of America, because if we don't lay the real issues and reality on the table, it is impossible to go forward. You can't go forward if you don't know where you are today. Where we are today is politically, we have a corrupt campaign finance system which is undermining American democracy. Sorry to have to tell you that, but that's the truth. And what that truth means is that what you believe, what I believe, is that democracy is about one person, one vote. You want to vote for me, great. You want to vote against me, that's okay. But you get one vote. What democracy is not about are billionaires buying elections. That's not democracy. That is oligarchy. And this country is not going to become an oligarchy if we have anything to say about it. Secondly, it's not only a corrupt campaign finance system, it is a rigged economy. And what a rigged economy means is that the average American today is working longer hours for lower wages, while almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. That's a rigged economy. A rigged economy is when the top 1/10 of 1%, not 1%, 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. A rigged economy is when the 20 wealthiest people in this country own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million Americans. A rigged economy is when one family, the Walton family of Walmart, one family owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. A rigged economy is about when the Walton family, who owns Walmart, pays their workers wages that are so low that many of their workers have to go on Medicaid, food stamps, and subsidized housing. And you are the people, we are the people who pay for that Medicaid, food stamps, and subsidized housing. Well, it seems pretty stupid to me that the middle class has got to subsidize the wealthiest family in this country. So I say to the Walton family, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. And here is another truth. And here is another truth that is profound and tragic. All over this country, here in Ohio, here in my state of Vermont, we got folks, working people, they're not working one job, they're working 2 jobs, they're working 3 jobs, trying to cobble together. Am I right? 3 jobs. 3 jobs. Trying to cobble together income and some health care. Now, I want you all to think about this, because this campaign is also asking the American people to think outside of the box, outside of the status quo. Today, all of you know, we have seen an explosion of technology. Every worker is much more productive than that worker was 20, 30 years ago. Why is it that with all of that increased productivity, people work longer hours and make lower wages? Why is it that mom has got to go to work, dad goes to work, the kids go to work, and at the end of all of that, 58% of all new income goes to the top 1%. Now, I'll tell you something that the young people here probably won't believe, but I'll tell it to you anyhow because it's true. All right, 40 years ago, we had an economy where in many cases, one person, in those days the man, would go to work 40 hours a week, and earn enough money to take care of the whole family. One worker. Today, you got mom and dad working and they're not making enough money together to take care of the family. That is not the economy we need for this country. But it's not only a corrupt campaign finance system that we have. It's not only a rigged economy where the very rich get richer and everybody else gets poorer. It is a broken criminal justice system. Brothers and sisters, this great country should not have more people in jail than any other country on earth. And if anybody thinks the number of people we have in jail, 2.2 million people, is unrelated to the fact that in America today, in terms of youth unemployment, white kids, 17 to 20, high school graduates, 33% unemployed, underemployed. Latino kids, 36%. African American kids, 51% unemployed, underemployed. Here is another radical idea. We're going to invest in our kids, in education and jobs. We're going to make sure our kids are working or they're in school. They're not going to end up in jail. I am tired of seeing young people's lives destroyed. We are going to give them an opportunity. Now, I want to say a few words about some of the differences between Secretary Clinton and myself, because they're pretty profound. Number one, you could tell a lot about a candidate in terms of how he or she raises money, raises their campaign funds. Everybody knows, sadly but truthfully, it takes a lot of money, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, to run for president of the United States. Well, we had to make a choice. And the choice we had to make is, are we going to do what every other candidate does? Establish a super PAC and go out and beg billionaires and Wall Street and corporate America for campaign funds? Well, we thought about it. We thought about it for 1/10 of 1 second. And we concluded, no, our campaign is not going to have a super PAC. We don't represent the billionaires. We don't want their money, and we're going to do it another way. And the way we did it is unprecedented. We went out to working families and we said, look, if you want real change in this country, if you want a candidate who is going to stand up to the billionaire class and tell them they can't have it all, we need your help. We know you don't have a lot of money. Help us the way you can. And you know what's happened in the last 10 months? We have received over 5 million campaign contributions. $5 million more than any candidate in the history of this country at this point in a campaign. And you know what the average campaign contribution is? $27. Now that is, if I must say so myself, pretty damn good. So to paraphrase Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, Secretary Clinton has chosen another path to raise her campaign funds. She has established several super PACs, and recently her major super PAC reported that they raised $25 million from special interest, $15 million from Wall Street itself. And in addition to that, as many of you know, the Secretary had previously given speeches behind closed doors to major Wall Street companies like Goldman Sachs, where she got paid $225,000 per speech. And she gave a lot of speeches. Now, here's what I think. If you get paid $225,000 for a speech, it must be an extraordinary speech. It must be mind-blowing. It must be Shakespearean. It must be revealing unlocked sources of knowledge. And I think that if the speech is that great, it should be released to the American people. Let's all see it. Now, Hillary Clinton says, okay, I will release my transcripts if other candidates release theirs. So I have a dramatic announcement to make right here in Youngstown, Ohio. Are you all ready for this dramatic announcement? I am prepared here and now to release all of my transcripts for the speeches I gave on Wall Street. Here they are. Shh. No transcripts, no speeches. I just wonder why, I don't know, why Wall Street hasn't invited me and offered me $225,000 to make a speech. I just don't know why, but I'll tell you this. If tomorrow my friends on Wall Street want to invite me, I don't need their money, but I will go, and this is what I will tell them. I will tell them that their greed and their recklessness and their illegal behavior brought this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. I will tell them that their illegal behavior cost millions of Americans their jobs, their homes, and their life savings. And I will tell them, you know, many of these banks, Goldman Sachs and many of the other major ones, Goldman Sachs alone, about a month ago, reached a settlement with the United States government for $5 billion. Do you know that? $5 billion. You know why they reached that settlement? Because they were selling worthless packages of subprime mortgages, okay? So they reached the settlement for $5 billion. And this is my message to Wall Street. Some kid or person here in Ohio or my state of Vermont gets picked up today with marijuana. That person will have a police record, will have a criminal record for the rest of his or her life. If you are an executive on Wall Street and your company, your bank, reached an agreement with the federal government for $5 billion, you know what happens to you? You get a raise in your salary. So I will tell the people on Wall Street to watch out, because we are going to bring back justice to the criminal justice system. What justice is about in America is justice under the law, equal justice under the law. You're poor, you're rich, equal justice for all, including Wall Street executives. Now, I want to talk about another difference between Secretary Clinton and myself, a profound and important difference that the people of Ohio, the people of Illinois, the people of the entire Midwest knows, as does every American. And that is that our disastrous trade policies, NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China, have cost this country millions of decent paying jobs. In Ohio alone, from 1994 through 2015, this state lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs, 31% of its factory jobs. And the key difference between Secretary Clinton and myself is not only did I vote against every one of these disastrous trade agreements, I helped lead the opposition to them. So when it came down to whether you stand with corporate America, the people who wrote these agreements, or whether you stand with the working people of this country, I proudly stood with the workers. Secretary Clinton stood with the big money interests. I was on the picket lines in the early 1990s, because I understood what these trade agreements were about. You all understand what these trade agreements are about. They're written by corporate America, and corporate America said, why do I want to pay a worker in Ohio or in Indiana or in Illinois or in Vermont 20, 25, 30 bucks an hour when I could shut down in this country, move to Mexico, move to China, pay people pennies an hour, and bring our products back into this country? That is what these trade agreements have always been about. And if elected president, trust me, we are going to change those trade agreements. Since 2001, 15-year period, this country has lost almost 60,000 factories, millions of decent paying jobs. That's tragedy number one, and it has devastated, as all of you know, communities like Youngstown, Akron, communities all over this great state, but all over this country. So we have lost millions of decent paying jobs, but I'll tell you the other half of the story that is often not reported. It's not only massive job loss, it is the race to the bottom. Do you know what I mean by that? What I mean by that is that the new jobs that are being created in manufacturing today, and we have some new jobs, that's the good news. Bad news is they pay substantially less than these jobs paid 20 or 30 years ago. So workers are coming in, young workers are coming in, working next to older workers, and yet they're earning significantly less. And you know why that's happening? Because what the trade agreements do is allow employers to say to workers, you got a choice. Here is your choice. Either you're going to accept a major reduction in your wages and in your health care benefits. If you don't like that, that's fine. We're going to China. Those are not the choices that workers in this country should be forced to make. So we tell corporate America, every night you turn on the TV, they want you to buy this car, they want you to buy that product. Well, if they want us to buy their products, the time is long overdue for them to start manufacturing those products here in the United States of America. I'm tired of seeing them creating jobs all over the world while they're laying off American workers. Not acceptable. That is going to end. Look, what thinking outside of the box is understanding where we can go as a nation. You want to talk about jobs? I was in Flint, Michigan a couple of weeks ago. What I saw in Flint, Michigan was literally incomprehensible to me. And after I talked to some parents, I had to go out and give a speech, and it was hard for me to give that speech because I was so shaken. In America in 2016, in Flint, Michigan, children are being poisoned by a broken water system in which people are ingesting lead in their water. In America in 2016. Children are being poisoned, but it's not just Flint. Recent report, Newark, here, all right. Now, I want to ask you this. This is thinking outside of the box. How in God's name, in the richest country in the history of the world, that's what we are today. Why are water systems, why is our infrastructure crumbling while the rich get much richer? That is not what America's supposed to be about. Look, let's be honest. Let's be honest. If we were a poor country, if we were a poor, struggling country, what we would be honest about and say, look, it's terrible that our water systems, our wastewater plants, our roads, our bridges, our airports, our rail system is crumbling. We're a poor country. We can't do anything about it. We are not a poor country. But what we have is massive income and wealth inequality, and we have our priorities as a nation absolutely backward. This is what, in my view, we should be doing. We should be investing $1 trillion over 5 years to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. Water systems, roads, bridges. In my state of Vermont, we got roads that are in desperate need of repair. We got bridges that are in need of repair all over America. This is America. Why the hell can't we rebuild our roads and bridges and our water systems? And when we put $1 trillion over 5 years, we create 13 million decent paying jobs rebuilding America. Now people say, well, Bernie, yeah, we need to rebuild our infrastructure, but $1 trillion, that is a lot of money. Where are you going to get the money? I will tell you where we get the money. Right now, you have major corporations making billions of dollars a year in profit. And you know what they do with their profits? They stash their money in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and in other tax havens. And at the end of a given year, some of these corporations do not pay a nickel in federal income tax. We're gonna do away with that loophole. We're gonna bring in an additional $100 billion a year, and we're gonna use that money to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. That's what we're gonna do. Let me also tell you what we are going to do. And again, it is important to think outside of the box. Don't allow the media to decide what you're allowed to think. Right now, we have a public school system in this country which says that we should have free public schools. I went to a public school. My family didn't have any money. That's where we went. It was pretty good schools. Today you have public schools that provide free education from the 1st grade to the 12th grade, right? That's good. But you know what? The world has changed. The economy has changed. People need more education.